I was a senior therapist at Roth McFarlane Hand and Upper Limb Center in London, Ontario, Canada. And I had an opportunity to treat quite a few of these stiff wrist, stiff elbow, stiff forearm at my clinical setting. So if you look at the architecture of the MCP joint, it's designed to become stiffer in extension. The reason behind that is that if you look at the dorsal part of the metacarpal head, it is spheric and narrow, whereas the volar part is wide and bicondylar. So following an injury, often you will see that if the patients are unable to retain or maintain motion of the metacarpophalangeal joint, the dorsal joint capsule becomes tight, the collateral ligaments become tight, and patients have an inability to flex the metacarpophalangeal joints. And if you look at the collateral ligamentous orientation especially, they're not exactly straight, but they're somewhat spiral, accommodating the curvature head of the metacarpal. So it's important for us to look at where exactly the line is, which is allowing the collateral ligaments to remain in a shortened position and undergo an adaptive change over time. If you look at the PIP joint, the architecture is such that it has many structures that tends to contribute to flexion contractures. It's designed that way. Whenever you have a trauma of any kind, whether it's to the wrist, whether it is to the metacarpal, the PIP joint tends to suffer a lot, even though the other structures have been injured. So as a result, you have quite a bit of swelling, and as Dr. Sabapathy mentioned, that the edematous fluid contains a lot of protein, so as a result, the metacarpophalangeal joint, if it is sitting in an hyperextended position, PIP joints fall in flexion and they remain in a flexed position. So one of the recent studies have shown that the PIP joint volume is about maximum at about 40% of its flexion. Extension contractures are relatively less common as compared to the PIP joint flexion contractures for a reason. Unless the MCP joint is pinned through intramedullary nail in order to fixate the proximal phalangeal fractures, that you'll see that then in such situations, extension contractures of the PIP joint are more severe. But very interestingly, if you look at the biomechanics of the finger, especially during extension, the PIP joint flexion contractures will often lead to the metacarpophalangeal joint hyperextension that will further contribute to the flexed PIP joint posture. So looking at this, then we can say that the PIP joint is designed in a way to have a greater flexor force as compared to the extensor force. So therefore, the forces are imbalanced, especially at the PIP joint, because of the biomechanics in general. So in order for us to treat these patients successfully, we have to do a detailed assessment if you are looking at the metacarpophalangeal joint or interphalangeal joint. And we all are familiar with all the tests that we perform in order to identify structural limitations that imposes lack of motion, whether it be at metacarpophalangeal joint or PIP joint. So I'm going to focus mainly on the non-surgical management. So it's important for us to look at this, whether the person has a structural cause, whether the person has a functional cause, and it's important for what length of time these patients have had limitation in either extending the PIP joint or flexing the metacarpophalangeal joint, because time is a big factor. Sustained inability to move the fingers will lead to adaptive changes which are progressive in nature, and gradually over time, this adaptive shortening will be relatively a lot more severe, enabling the patients to move. And in addition to that, you may consider joint pathologies as well. So it's emphasizing that the duration of limitation is essential. But if you focus on the stages of injury healing or wound healing, the injury or wound healing goes through a sequential progress, going from the inflammatory phase going to the remodeling phase. And ultimately, gradually over time, as changes occur, the joints become stiffer, and the pericapsular region, you have a density of heavier scar. So this is the process, but interestingly, some of the animal studies have shown that formation of contracture is profound in 3 weeks following trauma. And that's the key time frame in order for us to act even before, in order to maximize mobility following an injury or following a surgical procedure. But interestingly, if you look at the stiffness, there is no formal gradation system anyone has developed to prove the point that the stiffness is X percentage and all that. But in order for us to identify the amount of stiffness, we focus on using end field, that is the load displacement curve, that the concept was introduced by Paul Brand. And the treatment is generally based on addressing the soft tissue structures and its compliance in relation to load applied, whether it be internal or external. So let's keep in mind that stiff joint is a symptom manifested by various factors. So if you are referring the patient to a therapist, please ensure that you are writing the diagnosis, such as PIP joint dislocation, fractures, or whatever, because writing stiff hand is not a diagnosis. Anybody can say that. We use different types of modalities, and it's quite effective in order to increase the viscoelastic properties of the tissues that have undergone an adaptive shortening. So following application of modality, then we use joint mobilization. But it's very important if you're treating the metacarpophalangeal joint, you have to allow distraction, anterior-posterior gliding, and rotational ability, because ultimately when we move our fingers from extended position to flexed position, there are systematic changes that are occurring at the capsular orientation as well as ligamentous orientation. So in order to maximize mobility, motion of the MCP and all that is quite effective. Similarly, looking at the PIP joint is especially important for us to use various techniques. This is for the metacarpophalangeal joint. We use tendon acceleration program in order to maximize the strength between the two structures. So looking at the splinting plays a major role, and therefore the therapists are well trained in order to use the splinting in order to gain desired motion. And then wearing schedule is dose dependent on whether they have a tolerance and all that. So this is a dynamic or static progressive splint giving us a greater amplitude of motion. So PIP joint stiffness, history and examination is quite important. We identify primary limiting factors, and based on this, then we structure a therapeutic program to maximize results. So this is a patient who had a PIP joint release showing ultimate range of motion. So we use continuous passive motion machines in order to retain and maintain mobility that has been achieved intraoperatively. And over time, of course, the patients, as they go through the healing process, we can get great results. And then this should also be followed by the therapeutic exercise program in order for us to maximize mobility. So it's important that we need to increase the excursion of flexors and extensor tendons in bidirectional way so that these structures are capable of retaining motion that is gained either through surgical procedure or by therapeutic means. So there are various types of splints that we use. This is just an example. And of course, the examples of splintings are included right here. So with this, this is a patient with complex regional pain syndrome, stiff MCP and IP joint using CPM. Patient shows great range of motion. There are some other alternatives available, such as casting motion to mobilize stiffness. And special consideration, of course, as I mentioned, that PIP joint flexion contracture will always result into hyperextension at the metacarpophalangeal joint. And therefore, this should be taken into account in order for us to maximize mobility by providing these patients with an MP block splint so that you are increasing the structural excursion in order to retain mobility at the PIP joint. So there is a whole entire biomechanics of the PIP joint flexion contractures leading to MCP joint hyperextension. And because of the limited time, I am not going to go through this in detail, but it's important that this is taken into account when we are rehabilitating these patients following an injury. But we must keep in mind that physiological effects of joint mobilization passive range are short-lived. In order for these patients to have viscoelastic changes in an adaptive shortened contractures, it's important that we begin with strengthening programs so that it increases mobility. Prevention is the key because we know the structural orientation of the MCP and PIP joints. So if we prevent that right from the beginning, we can get successful results. So in conclusion, the therapeutic interventions are quite beneficial, especially if these patients are referred to the therapist early. But please do not describe aggressive therapy because aggressive therapy may cause greater inflammatory response resulting into additional complications such as complex regional pain syndrome, pain and stiffness. Thank you.